So welcome back to the YouTube channel. In this video we're going to be doing a direct comparison between the Mythic and the Summit. So yeah, I mean, after going through all the comments on the last few videos we've done on both bikes, there seems to be a lot of common questions coming up for people asking, like, you know, basically which bike should I buy? So in this video I want to jump into the sizing of both bikes, how the bikes ride, how they go uphill, how they go downhill, a bit of the geometry on each, and then the uses for each bike as well, depending on what you want to do. So we'll kick things off and we'll talk about Mythic VRX. So this is the 29er model, it's the 2020 model. On a broad scale, this bike is pretty much like a do-everything kind of bike. It's got 140mm travel on the front, 140mm travel on the rear, a really capable bike. The spec on this bike isn't what comes standard, so I've upgraded a few things on this. I'll put a link on the screen now to a video where we put the brand new Shimano Dior drivetrain on there. We've also got a different rear wheel, different tyres, and pretty much it. Everything else is stock on the bike. So suspension is stock, dropper seat post is stock. It's a real fun and playful bike. So yeah, if we take a look at the Summit. So the Summit is basically Vitus's full-on enduro bike. This thing is pretty much capable of handling anything you throw at it, whether you want to go and do full-on enduro races on the EWS stages around the world, or you just want a bike that you know that will give you peace of mind, that will handle it all. The Summit is, you know, is a bike that is definitely on the radar for you. You don't feel out of your depth when you're riding, so you don't feel like you want more travel, you want more suspension. This thing, once it's set up right, is like an absolute rocket down the trail. Okay, so we'll talk about the uses of each bike, because I think the Summit and the Mythic have, like, they're suited to different styles of riding. So for me personally, I use the Summit for my EWS racing and a lot of my training riding around here. That's because I spend most of my time on that bike. It's a really capable race bike. You know, say if I lived in the Alps or in some big mountainous areas, I probably would be erring on the side of looking towards the longer travel bikes, so the Summit or even the Escarpe, because that's a really capable bike as well. That's like the 150mm travel bike that sits in between these two. If, however, I was staying planted in the UK and I was looking at riding more trail centre stuff, local single track, that kind of stuff, I'd probably look to go towards the Mythic. I've ridden the same stuff as I've ridden the Summit before on all the stuff around here, and it hasn't really missed a beat once. Of course, it took a little bit of setting up, like any bike would, with suspension and handlebar roll and stem height and the cockpit set up and stuff like that, but after it's all set up, the bike absolutely rips. Let's say, for example, now if you were riding a lot of bike park stuff, so if you lived in Morzine, say, and you were riding chairlift laps all day on jump tracks and stuff, I think that would probably come down to personal preference, because both these bikes are probably well suited to ride in bike parks. For example, I took both like these styles of bikes to Whistler. So a few years ago I went to Whistler on a Santa Cruz 5010, which had like 140mm travel, and I did not feel out my depth at all riding on that bike. And then the following years I've been on the Summit, which is obviously a bigger bike. Probably you could say it would be more capable of things, but you know, equally were both as fun. Sure, if you were hitting like some of the steeper, more technical downhill runs, run after run, you'd probably be best looking at getting the longer travel bike. But if you like a bike to be poppy on the jumps, quite snappy, quite, you know, playful, then a 140mm travel sort of trail bike like the Mythic would be also great for that. So I guess if you want to ride more bike parky stuff, that comes down to personal preference. You could ride both bikes in bike parks and have an absolute ton of fun. So if we talk about sizing, this year I'm running the XL version of both bikes. So this has a reach of 495mm, the Mythic has a reach of 485mm. So they're pretty big in the cockpit to what I've been used to in the past, which does come down to personal preference. I like a fairly big bike just because it makes me feel more stable when I'm going fast and riding, you know, the stages that we have in the Enduro World Series stuff. Last year I did run a large, which was the orange Summit, which I still have and still ride. I like playing between the two and seeing what they're like still. But basically, like the large, I came to the conclusion that the actual large bike of the Summit was a lot more playful than the XL. The XL was probably a faster bike. The XL doesn't feel like it doesn't feel as erratic because the bike's obviously bigger, whereas you're probably still going the same speed as on the larger, the XL.
Holy what?
But because you've got more size, more stability, there's not as much erratic movements. I think I'm about 6'1", 6'2". I personally would be going for an XL size. Which I guess brings me on to the next part, which is like how these bikes go up and go down. So how do each of these bikes compare when we're pedaling uphill? Because obviously both these bikes are primarily used for trail or enduro riding, which includes pedaling up and going downhill. Most bikes, from what I've seen overall, are bringing out bikes with steeper and steeper seat angles, so that's obviously helping when you're pedaling up hills, because you're actually pedaling, you're pushing your pedals down into the ground rather than forwards, if you like. So it's way more efficient to go up hills. These two bikes have fairly steep seat angles. I would say the Mythic has got a slightly slacker seat angle than the Summit when you're actually riding it. That's what it feels like to me anyway. Each are both equally as good at pedaling up hills. You could argue because of the short travel Mythic, it actually pedals uphill a little bit more efficiently, but both these bikes I'm actually running 12-speed gearing, the TRP 12-speed stuff on the Summit, and then the Shimano Dior 12-speed stuff on the Mythic, and you just whack it in that big cog and just spin up pretty much any climb, doesn't matter how steep it is, the bikes will get up it. Let's talk a bit about how each of the bikes handle when they're going down the trail. Been watching the videos recently on the channel, I've been riding the Summit quite a lot because that's the bike I'm going to be racing in this year's Enduro World Series, even though it's a little bit funny this year because of this whole pandemic thing. But that's the bike I'll be racing, so I've been trying to put more time in on that bike than the Mythic because I want to feel comfortable when it comes to racing. But that's not to say that I can't jump on the Mythic and just go out and have a spin, and takes me a long time to get used to, because I can jump on that bike and it just feels comfortable straight away. I'm going down trails, obviously, when we're doing like full-time runs and stuff like that, or if we're on adrenaline uplift for the day, I'd probably opt for going for the Summit because it's more like a downhill bike. I feel like I can ride it a lot harder just because it's got a little bit more travel. That's a little bit different though. If we go to a trail centre, say if we go over to Glentress today, which is like 5 minutes down the road, it's like a really big trail centre in Scotland, there in Alethan, I'd probably opt to take the Mythic just because it's got less travel, it's easy to pedal around, it's slightly lighter. I think there's about 0.75 of a kilo between the two bikes, so the Mythic's about 14.8 kilos and I think the Summit's about 15.3 kilos out the box. So the Mythic is actually slightly lighter, obviously, which makes it easier and more energy efficient if you're just pedaling around a trail centre. Okay, so now the big question. Both these bikes come in 29 and 27.5 wheel sizes, but which one should you get? At the minute, I'm quite sold on the 29 wheel size for both bikes, just because 29s in general, if you've ridden them, you'll know that they are way more efficient when you're riding, so the bigger wheels get over obstacles easier. Once they're actually up to speed, they're way easier to keep at that speed because there's obviously just the bigger size of the wheel. There's more of the tyre in contact with the floor at once, so you could say you've got more grip. And as well, I think they're great for pedaling uphill as well. Obviously, you can get both these bikes in 27.5 as well, or you could even make the 27.5 bike a mullet bike, so you could run a 29 wheel size in front and a 27 on the back. We're not going to go too much into that in this video, but we'll just talk about 27.5 wheel size because I still think they have their place. There's still people that run 27.5 for racing, and they obviously also run mullet setups as well, just to give that, I suppose, slacker head angle. Say if I had a 26-inch mountain bike and I was looking to upgrade to a more modern bike for now, I'd probably want to test both bikes, 29 and 27.5 wheel sizes, because 26 to 29 is quite a big jump in wheel size, therefore it's going to feel very different. So I'd probably try and get out on the trail on a test bike or whatever, so you can actually get a good feel for what 29 feels like, and then obviously the same for 27.5. There is still a big difference between 27.5 and 29 when you're riding. 27, you could argue, is like more snappy around corners, so say if you're riding tighter, steeper trails. I know I've got friends here in the valley that we've talked before about 29ers do feel a little bit like they're holding back almost because they're just bigger bikes, bigger wheels, bigger wheelbase, bigger everything, so you have to maneuver that bigger mass around obstacles down steeper trails, whereas 27.5 is a little bit more nippy and you can maneuver it around a bit and snap out of corners better. I personally would go for 29er over 27.5, just because that's what I'm used to now, and I'm sold on the idea. I think that's the way mountain bike is going, and it's the way forward. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to put together like a kind of like an FAQ style video of most common questions I get asked about both these bikes, because they're pretty much all boiled down to the same thing. People wanting to know which bike they should go for, which size they should go for, which wheel size they should get. The bike's like going up and downhill, so that's kind of like my amalgamation of thoughts on both bikes. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, helps us grow. And bottom right hand corner, if you're not already subscribed, get yourself subscribed to the channel. That means you won't miss any future videos. Leave a comment below if you've still got any questions that I didn't answer in this one about either of the bikes or any Vitas bike in general. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video.